There's an evil out there, and it's beyond anything you can imagine.
Carly Russell vanishing last night along Interstate 459 in Hoover.
Those are just some of the names of people who are missing here in the Midlands.
We've been after the same guy for years. It always feels like he's one step ahead.
Put me in a dark, solitary cell. And to you, that's the end. To me, there's a world in that. I'm free.
Transport on its way.
How far are you willing to go down that rabbit hole? What's going on, guys? I am super stoked today because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite aspects of editing, and that is sound design. I used to be a composer and a music producer, so early on in my career I got really comfortable with working with audio and how to shape it to kind of create an ambience or create different effects for your film. And I put this little trailer together with nothing but stock footage, so there was no sound on any of these clips, and for the purpose of creating this tutorial I wanted to give you guys an in-depth look at how I would approach something, you know, a little story or a trailer or maybe a short film. This video was sponsored by our friends over at audio.com. They really have an awesome library of music that they're building and sound effects that has really become crucial to my editing process. And right now, guys, you can get 70% off your first year of Audio Pro. That's unlimited music and sound effects using my link in the description down below. But before we dive into the actual tutorial, I think it's really important to just go over a few things just so you guys have a general understanding of what I'm talking about as we go through the different categories of sound design and how they work together to create this overall sound for your film. So the first category that we're going to talk about today is Foley, and this is practical sound design that you hear in elements like footsteps or even a car engine. Next, we have atmospheric sound design, and just to give you guys an example, this would be something like a city street, or maybe it would be a forest. Anything that gives you the overall atmosphere and puts you in the environment of what you're trying to give to the audience. Then you have the more creative aspects of sound design, and that's elements like risers, whooshes, hits, and sound beds. So let's jump into this project really quick. When I go into any project, I separate all of the content that I'm working with into bins. So I'll have my bin for my footage, my music, my sound effects. The other thing that I really suggest that you guys do is color code all of your sound design elements. If you look at this project here, you'll notice that all of the blue stuff is all going to be voiceover. You have the green tracks, that's all the different music tracks. Anything that's labeled pink is going to be sound effects. And then you have these blue tracks right here, which are all going to be atmosphere and Foley sounds. Now, before I sound design anything, the first thing that I like to do is I like to make notes on my timeline for specific sound design elements that I want to highlight, or where I think there could be a music break or, you know, some sort of crescendo in the music, anything that's going to help me kind of understand and have a plan for my sound design process. Now, just to give you guys an example, after watching a few seconds of this trailer, there's a few places where I'm going to put some notes. Now, the first thing that I notice here, and the first place I'm going to start putting a note is here you have this drop into this drone shot where it shows you the town. So to me, it feels like there should be some sort of music piece rising up or something rising to kind of break off into this first shot of the town that we see. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write a marker right here that says, you know, music crescendo. And then I'm also going to put right here, there could be some Foley sound design, wiping mirror. Now I have the first 10 seconds, the idea for the first 10 seconds of what I want to do here. Now I'm going to go through the entire trailer and I'm going to start figuring out all the different notes and planning out all the different sections that I want to have little sound design elements or strong musical breaks and kind of just get an idea of exactly what I want to do. Now for this entire project, I've gotten all of these music and sound design assets from audio.com. Now, some of you guys might not consider music as sound design, but I'm going to show you guys how blurry those lines get in just a second and how much the music and the sound design work together to create this overall feeling of your film. So we're going to listen to the first track that I put on here. This is just the music track. So a big reason why I chose this first track is because it starts to build this uncomfortable tension. And this first scene of this creepy dude looking into this mirror, I just felt like we wanted to start building some tension. We're gonna rise this into the next musical section. Now this next audio track was from audio.com, and it's a track called Obsidian by Brian Hill. Now what's awesome about audio is that you could take a track like this by Brian Hill, and while all of that stuff is good, the track is great, I just wanted the piano aspect of it. So I could literally go on here and just download the piano, throw that specific stem on my timeline. This kind of dark, ominous, rhythmic piano just doing this droning kind of rhythm sound was really exactly what I wanted for the piece. Now, if we go back to the original music track, you'll notice that there's not really a great transition between that music track and the other one. And to me, it's because this first music track is a little bit higher pitched than it needs to be. So what I did was I put in a pitch shifter. I basically lowered the pitch down -3 semitones. And it was just to give a little bit smoother of a transition from this sound to the piano. This is what it sounds like with the pitch shifter on. Now this is with it off. And that's something that you guys can do with the music tracks. This is a great tool to use to kind of blend tracks in together and make them feel like at least they're in the same key or in the same world. Now this next thing that I did was pretty cool. I basically took a atmospheric sound that I thought was pretty creepy, and here's how this sounds. You can kind of hear it kind of droning, giving this overall dark atmosphere. And I wanted to add that to this piano sound because to me, the piano sound, while I liked how simple it was and how droning it wasn't filling enough of the atmosphere and giving you kind of like that next layer of darkness that I wanted to bring to the edit. So what I did was I added 2 tracks. I added the original piano track, and then I also used this track right here, completely different track. And because they were in the same key, I put them right on top of each other and I let them play at the same time. And this is what it sounds like with the piano track and this atmospheric track together. The next music piece was this piece right here. As you can see, like throughout the trailer, it's building up. You have clips kind of coming in faster. You have the momentum of the trailer feeling like it's moving and it's trying to reach a sort of climax. Now, that was kind of the end of the trailer, but then I threw back in this music piece kind of as like a little motif for the edit. And that droning piano sound, it's in the beginning of the trailer and it's also at the end of the trailer, and it kind of reminds you that this darkness isn't gone. Coming into this first section, right? Listening to just the music and watching just this opening scene. We have the music rising, and then all of a sudden, boom, or we go into that drone shot. If we take a look at this scene, if I was to describe this, it feels cold, it feels dark, but it feels big, it feels spacious. And if I'm thinking about this from an atmosphere level, I'm thinking, okay, well, I want to make this place feel big, spacious, dark, empty, a little bit creepy. So what I did was I found this sound from audio.com, and let's have a listen to it with just this sound put in without the music. It's an atmospheric sound, and as you could hear it, it sounds big, it sounds spacious, and you could also hear like dripping of water or something. You know, it looks like maybe he's over a sink, so it kind of plays into all that. Now, the other thing that we notice right away is that right here, he starts moving his hand across the mirror. We want to sound design that, and again, give more character to the edit, put you in this scene, and the best way to do that is by really nailing this sound. So I found this sound right here, and just listening to this sound, it sounds exactly like he's moving it across. And it took me a minute to get the timing right, but I got it to where it felt right on the money. And that's the way it sounded with that. Now, if we take a listen to this scene, this opening scene, this is what it all sounds like with the full thing coming together. The last element that I brought in was a little riser. You know, using risers is a great way to transition from one scene to another. It's a very powerful tool, but you don't want to overuse risers. You want to make sure that you use them in the right places at the right time. And of course, I got this riser from audio, and just listening to the riser alone, this is what it sounds like. It's subtle, it's not too much, but listening to it all together, this is what it sounds like. Now, the next thing that I wanted to add right away is a hit right into this opening scene of the town, right? So the hit that I used was this. And just going from the riser to the hit, this is what it sounds like. A subsonic hit to me resembles something that's transitioning, that's a little bit smoother of a transition rather than a hit that's a little bit more impactful and a little bit more sharp. Using this subsonic hit into this kind of introduces this next part without it being so drastic. The next thing that I wanted to add was this car scene. I thought this was a great place to add some sound design. All I did was add this car passing. I let it kind of linger on into this next scene of from car passing to inside the car. And I just left the tail of that sound in there. Coming into this scene, I didn't really add sound design here. I thought this was great to let the voiceover of the trailer take over and let that be the highlight here purposefully because I wanted you to just listen to the voiceover. Now in this scene right here, it's nighttime. I want to build this night forest atmosphere. And then you see this guy kind of walking and he kind of grabs the plastic and he's walking past the plastic. So in my mind, he's got to be walking on dirt. That's one aspect of it. And then he's also got to move this plastic. So I'm going to show you each sound design element one by one. This was the atmospheric sound design that I brought in. Now, the other thing that I did was add footsteps walking. And again, just like with any sound design, you have to time it right. It has to be in the right spot at the right time. So if we pay attention to just the sound of him walking, this is what it sounds like. And to me, that sounded believable enough. And then the next layer of sound design here was moving this plastic out of the way. It's subtle, but it helps you believe the scene is real. Now, putting it all together as one, this is what it sounds like. What I wanted to do for this next scene, we have this guy who is obviously holding a camera, and then there's a flash right there. So I thought that this flash would kind of kick off this series of flashes that you would see, you know, all the different research they're doing to try to figure out who this killer is. And this is where you kind of have to look at your overall edit and see where you could start to get really creative with the sound design. And this is what it looks like without the sound effects in there. As you can see, it just feels a little bit flat. But if you add some sound design in there, you have click, 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 and then like a chunky shutter kind of sound at the end. So again, listening to it one time, and I'm gonna zoom in for you guys. These are all the different clicks. 1, 2, 3, and then I wanted this one to be the most important one to me. You see this like old white dude with his fingerprints here. It seems like this guy's part of like the bigger picture. So to me, like in my mind, I was thinking to myself, well, this has to be the most significant sound in there. And again, giving purpose and meaning behind your sound design is super important. So again, you have the quick little flashes and then the chunky flash, and let's listen to it a little bit before this happens. Now, going into this next section here, it looks like he's in this sort of cell he's looking at himself in the mirror, really creepy. And then I thought it'd be cool to kind of cut to a scene where it showed worms. So if we have this worm scene back into this scene where he's looking at himself again, and then we do it again right here, I thought it'd be cool to add a little glitch effect. Now, this is important because you want the sound to also play into the role of this dude's crazy, and also the quick cut of him looking at himself into the worms. It needs to feel weird, it needs to feel creepy. I thought that was a pretty awesome sound. And then I wanted a little sound design for the worms, and I added these two little sounds right here. Now, if we put all of this together, the glitch and the sounds of the worms together, So now let's add everything back in there. This little voiceover I found, which, by the way, this voiceover right here is Charles Manson. And creepy dude. Listen to this whole interview. Super creepy. Don't recommend listening to it. Gave me the creeps. But taking a look at this scene right here with everything involved, all the sound into this scene, this is what it sounded like.
Put me in a dark, solitary cell. And to you, that's the end. To me, there's a world in that. I'm free.
Now, if you notice, the music doesn't start right on the beat or right on this scene of this guy going through the woods. Instead, I have it kind of rise up. I thought it would be more intense and creepier if we had all the music stop for a second and we had just a moment of this hit and this other pulsing sound right here. Now, the other thing that helps push this scene forward is the fact that we want to hear the atmosphere of where this guy is going. So we want to feel like it's nighttime, and this night atmosphere sound goes all the way into where this bald guy is laying face down. The other things that we added here was our guy walking through the forest. You also have these tree branches right here, which sounds like this. You know, it puts you right there. It puts you in the moment of he's walking through these tree branches. You see this branch right here come sort of at the camera. So I wanted it to be kind of loud. I wanted it to feel like this branch was hitting the camera. Then you have this guy shoveling. You might get a sound effect that has 10 different moments of him shoveling this thing out. You have to go through there and figure out what moment is the right moment that feels right for this sound effect. It sounds like the dirt is flying by, like if you listen to it. Like really try to listen to it. It really sounds like he's hitting it and the dirt's flying by. Okay, now in this little part, I added some sirens because it looks like he looks like a criminal. And then it also looks like these are cops picking him up from that scene to that scene. So I want you to feel like that's happening. And then this other sound that I put in here was this little Foley sound. It sounded like they were getting him up off the ground. While you're listening and while you're watching, those subtle little things play such a big role in putting your viewer in the sound. And then the other thing that I added was this cool little effect right here. This little dispatch sound. It sounded like cops were talking over like a walkie-talkie or something.
Transport on its way.
Transport on its way. You know, if you hear it all together, I mean, right there, it doesn't sound real. But if you listen to this whole section together with the music and everything.
Transport on its way.
To me, it felt like time played kind of a big role in all of this. It felt like they were trying to catch somebody before, you know, they ran out of time because maybe this guy had a bunch of people locked up or whatever it was. So again, trying to give meaning to the sound design, I wanted to add some element of time and anticipation and just this overall anxious feeling. And I thought a great way to do that would bring in this effect right here. So this little clock sound, it's building anticipation, it's building anxiety, it's building all of these things. It gives you the aspect of time. And then it rises onto this last part, and I have it cut off purposely right on the last scene, right on this last hit, making you feel like all of this is caused by this guy and it's all waiting for him to make a decision. If you bring this in with the music and all the other sound effects that is happening in here, this is what it all sounds like. Now, one thing that I would say to you guys is while you're doing your sound design, there's a few tips that I want to leave you guys off with. Number one, definitely take a look at your edit and plan out the different places where you want sound design to shine. The other thing that I want to tell you guys is that music plays such a big role in this, and I strongly suggest before you start sound designing, you figure out the music that you want and you lock in the music. And then once you have the edit locked and you have the music locked, that's when you could go nuts with the sound design and try to figure out different things. And if you guys want to check out other sound design tutorials, I have a much longer in-depth sound design tutorial right up here. You guys could check that out. And if you guys want me to make, you know, a breakdown on this whole trailer, how I made it, how I thought about it, how I edited it, the whole thing, let me know. Drop some comments and some love down below, and I will do that for you guys. Thank you so much for stopping in and hanging out, and I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.